My name is Alina. I'm 26 years old, and for 3 years I raised 5 children who were not mine. The house sat on a cracked street in Ashford, New Mexico, a place where the heat never fully left the walls and exhaustion lived in every corner. That afternoon, I stood in the living room, carefully stepping over toys and laundry, when my sister Brielle rested a hand on her stomach and announced, casually, almost proudly, that she was pregnant again. Her 6th time. She said it like she was announcing a sale at the grocery store. I didn't congratulate her. I couldn't. My stomach twisted because I already knew what this meant. More diapers, more daycare fees, more nights I wouldn't sleep, more sacrifices I never volunteered for. Brielle hadn't held a job in years. Her boyfriend Nolan, a professional couch ornament, was stretched out on the sofa, controller in hand, not even pretending to care. They both looked at me like I was part of the furniture. I had just come off a 60-hour work week managing inventory at a warehouse. My back still burned from lifting pallets, my head pounded from too little sleep and too much responsibility, and she expected more. When I finally said it, quietly, carefully, that I was done paying for her choices, her face changed instantly. The smile vanished, her eyes hardened. She screamed. She called me ungrateful. She threatened to kick me out. That was the betrayal. Not the pregnancy, not the money, but the realization that everything I'd given was never appreciated, only expected. Every morning started at 4 a.m. My alarm cut through shallow sleep, and I dragged myself out of bed before the house exploded into noise. I packed lunches for Marcus, helped Lily with her hair, checked Owen's homework, and rocked little Noah when he cried. Brielle and Nolan slept through it all, door locked, lights off, responsibility outsourced. I cooked, I cleaned, I parented. By the time I left for work, I already felt like I lived an entire day. One afternoon during my break, my phone buzzed. Final utility notice. I drove home shaking and found the power company's red warning taped to the door. I had given Brielle $600 the week before, money meant for my college tuition. In the trash, I found the receipt. Designer maternity clothes. I paid the bill anyway. Again. That night, the school called. Lily had skipped class. She told me later, eyes wet, that she felt invisible. Her mom only talked about the baby. I promised her things would get better. I lied. 3 days later, the knock came. Grandma Edith. She didn't come to help. She came to judge. She sat beside Brielle like a queen holding court and told me, calmly, that the solution was obvious. I should sell my car. My only way to work, my only way to school, my only way out. Family sacrifices, she said. When I refused, she called me selfish. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Later that night, I checked my bank account. That's when I saw the fraud alert. A credit card, in my name, maxed out. Brielle had stolen my identity to buy baby furniture. That wasn't irresponsibility, that was a crime. I met my best friend Rachel at a quiet coffee shop on the edge of Ashford. She worked as a paralegal. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "This is identity theft," she said, "and it will ruin you if you don't act." We froze my credit, disputed the charges. Rachel leaned forward and said the words that changed everything. "You need to leave. Now." When I went home, Brielle was furious. Her card had declined. She knew. A week later, I intercepted the mail, a thick envelope, an acceptance letter, a paid internship with a tech firm in Redmond City, more money, a future. Brielle ripped it in half. Then she told me to quit school, quit work, stay home. Nolan laughed and told me my place was with the family. That night, my nephew Marcus slipped me a notebook. Plans, dates, proof. They were going to report my car stolen. I left at midnight with trash bags, silence, and a promise to come back stronger. Freedom doesn't arrive like fireworks. It comes quietly, almost suspiciously, when your nervous system doesn't know what to do without chaos. The studio apartment Rachel found for me sat above a laundromat on the far edge of Ashford. The walls were thin, the air smelled faintly of detergent and old smoke. But for the first time in years, there was no screaming, no slammed doors, no expectations waiting for me the moment I opened my eyes. I slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke, the silence felt wrong. My body stayed tense, waiting for someone to yell my name, to demand breakfast, money, or emotional labor. Nothing came. Instead, my phone exploded. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of messages. Brielle's texts followed a pattern I knew well: confusion, guilt, rage, threats. I listened to one voicemail. Her voice was shrill, unhinged. She said she'd call the police. She said I stole from her. She said I'd regret this. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt prepared. Less than 2 days later, the knock came. Not gentle, not polite, authoritative. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. 2 police officers, and behind them, Brielle, wrapped in fake grief like a costume she'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. I opened the door slowly, hands visible. They accused me of theft, of abandoning minors, of stealing jewelry worth thousands. Brielle cried on command. She pointed, she shook. I invited them in. My apartment was nearly empty, just a mattress, clothes in bags, a laptop. Then something happened that Brielle hadn't planned for. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. My nephew Marcus appeared in the hallway, breathless, eyes blazing with resolve no 16-year-old should ever have to develop. He held up his phone. "There's a video," he said. "She hid the jewelry herself." The officers watched Brielle laughing as she stuffed the jewelry under her own bed, talking about teaching Elena a lesson. The room went cold. Brielle's mask cracked. The officers turned to her with an entirely different tone, filing a false police report, attempting to frame someone, potential child welfare concerns. She screamed. She blamed Marcus. She tried to grab him. They stopped her. And in that moment, the power she'd abused for years evaporated. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. It was the beginning of consequences finally catching up. The officers filed a mandatory report. Child Services got involved, not because of me, but because Marcus's evidence revealed what I'd been hiding for years. 2 months later, the house I escaped was declared unfit for children. Black mold, no food, utilities cut off again. Without my paycheck, without my labor, without my silence, the truth stood naked and undeniable. Nolan disappeared the moment responsibility showed up at the door. He emptied drawers, took what cash he could find, and vanished. Brielle stood alone in court. The judge didn't yell, he didn't shame, he just read the facts. The children were removed. Community service, fines, mandatory supervision. And Brielle's world, built entirely on my unpaid sacrifice, collapsed. The last time I saw Brielle, she found me. Not at home, not at night, but at work. I was 3 months into my internship in Redmont City, standing in a conference room discussing system workflows when the receptionist whispered that a woman was causing a disturbance in the lobby. I knew before I saw her. She looked smaller, hollowed out. She dropped to her knees in front of my coworkers, begged, sobbed, promised change. She tried to use the kids one last time. I felt sadness, but not guilt. "I raised them," I said quietly, "but you never did." Security escorted her out. I went back to my meeting. 6 months later, I stood in my own apartment overlooking the city lights. My internship had turned into a full-time role. My credit was repaired. My future, mine again. Grandma Edith moved into a state-run facility after her health declined. She called once. I didn't answer. I set up a protected education trust for the kids, money Brielle could never touch. Marcus writes me every week. He's safe. He's studying. He's hopeful. And Brielle? She works nights at a laundromat now. Ironically fitting. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped letting them destroy me. Blood doesn't excuse abuse, and love doesn't mean self-erasure. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't retaliation, it's refusal.